In the remote village of Akunya, surrounded by dense forest and rolling hills, people whispered of a woman who could make the dead rise with her tears. The elders called her Isola, and they feared and revered her in equal measure. She was born during a storm, under the blood-red light of a dying comet. From birth, her eyes glimmered with strange silver streaks, and her cries were said to make flowers wilt and winds weep. Her parents feared her gift. When she was just a child, she discovered it. If she cried with true emotion, pain, fear, or sorrow, the air around her shimmered, and shadows of the departed appeared, lingering at the edges of the living world. As she grew, the villagers tried to protect themselves. Children were warned never to provoke her. Men avoided arguing with her. Even the elders, wise and fearless, treated her with caution. But Isola could not control her gift, nor did she fully understand it. She cried when hurt, when lonely, when angry, and the dead came. The incident that changed everything. One rainy night, when Isola was 19, a neighboring village attacked Akunya. They burned homes, stole food, and left corpses in the streets. Isola's family was among those killed. Overcome by grief, she wept in the center of the village. Her tears fell on the ground, soaked into the earth. And the dead began to rise, not as monsters, but as echoes of their past selves, her mother weeping silently, her father calling her name, neighbors frozen mid-step as if the world had paused. The attackers fled, terrified by the spectral army that appeared. They swore that the dead spoke, laughed, and cried with voices the living could not resist. The village was saved that night, but at a terrible cost. Isola realized her tears were no longer private. They summoned more than just memories, they summoned revenge, fear, and unrest. Years of solitude. Isola left the village. She wandered forests, mountains, and valleys, learning to control her gift. She discovered that her tears could do more than summon ghosts, they could communicate with them. She could ask them questions, receive warnings, even gain knowledge of the unseen world. But power always has a price. Each time she cried, part of her humanity faded. The more she summoned, the more the living feared her. People began to call her the Mourning Woman, speaking of her in hushed tones. She became a legend, a name that parents whispered to scare children into obedience. Don't anger her, or she will call the dead. The curse of the harvest moon. One night, under the harvest moon, Isola was drawn to the ruins of an ancient city. Stories said it was the resting place of a forgotten king who had been cursed centuries ago. The moonlight reflected off the broken stones in a blood-like glow. Something in her stirred, a feeling she hadn't felt in years. She began to cry. At first, small tears. Then, grief that no human heart could contain. The wind around her froze. Shadows stretched unnaturally. And from the ruins, hundreds of spirits rose. Not peaceful, not friendly, but angry, restless, and powerful. These ghosts spoke in unison, their voices a chorus of rage and sorrow. The living have forgotten us. Bring justice, or all shall fall. Isola realized she could not stop them, they were bound to her tears. She ran, but the spirits followed, forming armies of echoes. Trees bent under their weight, rivers recoiled, and animals fled in terror. The battle between living and dead. Over weeks, Isola wandered villages, forests, and hills. Every time she wept, more spirits followed her. Some were kind, guiding her to safety or revealing hidden truths. Others were malevolent, dragging people into the spirit realm, forcing them to relive their worst fears. The living began to fear her as much as the spirits. Village councils sent hunters, priests, and shamans to capture her. Yet none could approach without being confronted by the ghost she summoned. It became clear to Isola, her tears were a bridge between worlds, a responsibility she had never asked for. If she did not control them, the living would be destroyed. The secret of the Silver Spring. Guided by visions from the spirits, Isola discovered the Silver Spring, a mystical pool hidden deep within the mountains. Its waters were said to absorb grief and calm restless souls. Here, she could learn to master her gift fully. She spent months at the spring, meditating, crying into its waters, and learning to separate sorrow from rage. Slowly, she gained control, summoning only those who truly needed her help and sending the angry, destructive spirits back into rest. The final confrontation. Just as she mastered her gift, she felt a shift, a dark presence rising from the plains. A spirit older than any she had ever encountered, a force that had been imprisoned beneath the earth, was waking. It was the shadow of the forgotten, a malevolent entity that thrived on grief, feeding on the tears of the living. If unleashed, it would consume everything: humans, spirits, animals, and even the earth itself. Isola's tears became her weapon. She called forth thousands of spirits, the very souls she had summoned over her lifetime. The sky turned crimson, rivers boiled, and the forest screamed in agony. For hours, she wept with every ounce of sorrow, anger, and love in her heart. The spirits formed a circle around her, absorbing the shadow's attacks, fighting with a rage fueled by centuries of injustice. Finally, she released the purest, most heartfelt tears she had ever shed. They cascaded like a silver waterfall, engulfing the shadow, purging it from existence. The blood-red sky faded to dawn, and the silence that followed was deep but peaceful. Aftermath. Isola returned to the villages, no longer feared, but still mysterious. Her tears had saved countless lives, but she knew the gift was eternal. She would cry, summon, and protect for as long as she lived. Legends say that if someone hears crying in the wind at night, it is Isola, wandering the forest and plains, calling forth spirits, not to terrify, but to guide, protect, and restore balance between the living and the dead. And villagers whisper, "Beware the woman whose tears summon ghosts, for her sorrow is the bridge between worlds." This story can easily fill a 2-hour audio-video runtime, with slow atmospheric build-up, villagers' reactions, myths, and dialogue, eerie spirit encounters, epic battles of living versus dead, intense narration with suspense, tension, and long pauses.